Sleep tight, if you can.
Our world can be a scary place. We lock our doors at night, double-check the windows, and tell ourselves it's all in our heads when we hear a bump in the night. We think we're safe in our homes, in our routines, in our everyday lives. But sometimes, the monsters aren't hiding under the bed or lurking in the shadows. Sometimes, they walk among us in broad daylight, hiding in plain sight. They can be the stranger you pass on the street, the new face in your apartment building, even someone who seems perfectly ordinary. The stories we're about to explore delve into those terrifying encounters, moments when ordinary people like you and me crossed paths with the truly sinister. These are the chilling tales that will make you question who to trust, where to turn, and just how safe you really are. Stay close because we're about to dive deep into 6 real-life encounters with murderers. And trust me, the truth is far more terrifying than anything you can imagine. Picture this. It's late, raining, and the wind is howling like a banshee. You're alone in a near-empty parking lot, the kind where the flickering fluorescent lights cast long, eerie shadows that seem to writhe and dance with each gust of wind. Sarah, a young woman just starting her career, found herself in this exact situation after a late shift at the office. As she fumbled with her keys, a cold shiver ran down her spine. The hair on the back of her neck stood on end, a primal instinct whispering that she wasn't alone. She glanced over her shoulder, her heart pounding in her chest. A lone figure stood at the edge of the lot, shrouded in the shadows. He was just watching. Sarah tried to shake off the feeling, telling herself it was just her nerves getting the best of her, but deep down, a seed of unease had been planted. She quickly unlocked her car, the sharp click of the lock echoing in the silence. As she slid into the driver's seat, she could feel her pulse quicken. She locked the doors, the sound a small comfort in the growing darkness of the night. Sarah started her car, the engine roaring to life like a beacon in the night. As she pulled out of her parking spot, her headlights briefly illuminated the stranger. He was gone. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. As she approached the parking lot exit, she noticed a figure walking quickly along the sidewalk, almost as if trying to keep pace with her car. Her breath caught in her throat. It was him, the same shadowy figure from before, now seemingly determined to stay in her sights. Sarah's mind raced, fear pumping through her veins like ice. She considered stopping, calling for help, but something told her that staying in her car, in the relative safety of the moving vehicle, was her best bet. She pressed down on the gas pedal, her car picking up speed, but to her horror the figure kept pace, his stride unnaturally long and fast. He was getting closer. Adrenaline surged through Sarah's body as she gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles turning white. The deserted street seemed to stretch on forever, each passing moment an agonizing eternity. She glanced nervously in her rearview mirror, her heart pounding in her chest. The figure was still there, his features obscured by the darkness, but his intent clear. He was pursuing her. Desperate, she made a series of sharp turns, hoping to lose him in the labyrinthine streets. But he matched her every move, his presence a terrifying constant in her rearview mirror. Just when she thought the chase would never end, she spotted a beacon of hope, a brightly lit gas station bustling with people. She pulled into the station, her arrival a stark contrast to the deserted street she had just escaped. Relief washed over her in waves as she finally felt safe. As she looked back toward the street, the figure was gone. Sarah had escaped the stranger's pursuit, but the chilling memory of that night, the fear of the unknown pursuer, would forever haunt her. Imagine the life of a social worker. Long hours, challenging cases, and the constant pressure of helping those in need. It's a demanding job, but for Emily, it was a calling, a way to make a real difference in the world. One chilly autumn evening, Emily found herself driving down a quiet, tree-lined street on the outskirts of town. She was on her way to a routine home visit, a familiar part of her job. The house, a modest two-story structure, seemed ordinary enough, almost picturesque in the fading light. As she parked her car and walked towards the front door, a sense of unease settled over her. Maybe it was the way the wind rustled through the fallen leaves, creating a whispering sound that seemed to echo her own anxieties. Or perhaps it was the unsettling stillness of the house, a stark contrast to the bustling neighborhood she had just left behind. Whatever the reason, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. She took a deep breath and rang the doorbell, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness. She waited, but there was no answer. Emily knocked again, this time a bit louder, but still, there was no response. She glanced at her watch, a knot of concern forming in her stomach. Her client, a single mother named Mrs. Peterson, had never missed an appointment before. As she turned to leave, she noticed something strange. The front door was slightly ajar. A chill ran down her spine as a wave of unease washed over her. She knew she should probably just leave and contact the authorities, but a nagging sense of responsibility compelled her to investigate further. Cautiously, Emily pushed the door open and stepped inside. The house was dark and eerily silent. A musty odor hung in the air, a mix of dust and something vaguely metallic that made her stomach churn. She called out, her voice echoing through the empty house. "Mrs. Peterson? It's Emily, your social worker. Are you home?" Her words were met with an unsettling silence that seemed to amplify the growing sense of dread in her heart. Picture a two-lane highway cutting through endless fields of corn, the sun dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. That was the scene for Sarah, driving home after visiting family. The drive was long, and the silence was starting to get to her. That's when she saw him, a lone figure standing by the side of the road, thumb outstretched. Now Sarah knew the rules: never pick up hitchhikers, especially not when you're alone. But something about the man's tired eyes and gentle demeanor tugged at her heartstrings. Maybe it was the isolation of the road, or perhaps the fading light playing tricks on her, but she decided to break her rule. As the man got into the car, a wave of relief washed over his face. He introduced himself as Thomas, explaining he was trying to get to the next town over. His voice was soft, almost a whisper, and he kept his gaze fixed on the passing scenery. At first were barely audible, but they sounded like prayers, or maybe pleas, uttered with a desperation that chilled her to the bone. Sarah tried to ignore it, focusing on the road, but the hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. What was this hitchhiker's secret? Why did his presence unsettle her so? The sun had vanished completely now, leaving them shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from the car's headlights. The silence became heavy, punctuated only by the hum of the engine and Thomas's increasingly disturbing whispers. Sarah tried to make conversation, to break the tension, but her attempts were met with mumbled responses. Thomas's gaze remained fixed out the window, his eyes reflecting the passing headlights like a deer caught in the open. It was as if he was looking for something, or perhaps someone, hidden in the darkness. Then, Thomas turned to Sarah, a strange glint in his eye, and began to speak. His voice, though still soft, was urgent, his words tumbling out in a torrent. He spoke of a darkness that followed him, a presence he couldn't escape. He spoke of terrible deeds, things he'd done, things he was running from. The things he said were beyond unsettling. They were the ramblings of a tormented soul, confessions that made Sarah's blood run cold. He spoke of a place he called the Valley of Shadows, a place where darkness consumed all light, where the air itself whispered secrets of forgotten sins. He claimed he had been there, seen things no living person should ever see. His words were fragmented, disjointed, but the terror in his voice was undeniable. It was clear to Sarah that this was no ordinary man, and she had stumbled into something sinister, something that filled her with a primal fear she had never known. Sarah's mind raced. Was this man delusional, dangerous, or both? She gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles turning white, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She had to get away from him, find a safe place to stop, but as she glanced at the seemingly endless road ahead, she realized they were in the middle of nowhere. The next town was still miles away. She was trapped. Suddenly, Thomas grabbed her arm, his grip surprisingly strong, his eyes burning into hers with an intensity that made her gasp. "They're coming!" he hissed, his voice raspy with terror. "They're always coming!" He pointed a trembling finger towards the rearview mirror. Sarah, her heart in her throat, dared to look. In the distance, barely visible in the glow of the taillights, were two figures walking with an unnatural gait, their silhouettes dark and menacing against the night sky. Imagine moving into a new neighborhood, excited to start fresh. That's what Emily had in mind when she bought the charming Victorian house on Elm Street. It was perfect, with a wraparound porch and a garden that seemed to bloom with an impossible array of flowers. Her neighbors, for the most part, were friendly and welcoming. But there was one, an older gentleman named Mr. Smith, who lived across the street, who seemed shrouded in an air of mystery. Mr. Smith kept to himself, rarely seen outside, his windows always dark. But whenever Emily caught a glimpse of him, he would offer a warm smile and a polite nod. Some of the other neighbors whispered about his past, about a tragedy that had struck his family years ago. They spoke in hushed tones, their faces etched with a mixture of pity and fear. Emily tried to ignore the gossip, reminding herself that everyone has a story, and it was not her place to pry. One afternoon, while tending to her garden, Emily noticed Mr. Smith watching her from his porch. He was sitting in a rocking chair, a blanket draped over his lap, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. She quickly looked away, her heart beating a little faster. When she glanced back, he was gone. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that behind Mr. Smith's friendly facade there was something more. Something unsettling that sent chills down her spine. As days turned into weeks, Emily couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. She would find strange things in her yard, a child's toy, a torn piece of lace, a faded photograph of a young family, their faces scratched out. Each object seemed out of place, remnants of a life lived and lost, and they filled her with a growing sense of dread. She tried to rationalize, telling herself they were just things left behind by previous tenants. But deep down, a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that they were connected to Mr. Smith, to the whispers of tragedy that surrounded him. One evening, while searching online for information about her new home, Emily stumbled upon an old news article. The headline sent a shiver down her spine: "Family vanishes from Elm Street home, no sign of forced entry." The article detailed the disappearance of a family who had lived in her very house decades earlier. The father, a man named Robert Smith, was the prime suspect, but no arrests were ever made. The case remained unsolved. Emily's blood ran cold. Could this be the tragedy the neighbors had whispered about? Was Mr. Smith, the seemingly harmless old man across the street, connected to the disappearance of an entire family? The thought was too terrifying to contemplate, yet she couldn't ignore the mounting evidence. The strange gifts in her garden, the intense stares, the chilling news article. They all pointed to a dark secret lurking beneath the surface of her seemingly idyllic neighborhood. Driven by a mix of fear and morbid curiosity, Emily began to dig deeper. She started piecing together fragments of information from old newspaper clippings, local lore, and hushed conversations with the neighborhood's oldest residents. A disturbing picture began to emerge. Robert Smith, it turned out, had been a recluse, obsessed with his family, convinced that the outside world posed a threat to their safety. He had become increasingly paranoid, isolating his wife and children from everyone, keeping them virtual prisoners in their own home. Then, one day they were gone, vanished without a trace. The authorities suspected foul play, but with no bodies and no evidence, the case went cold. Some whispered that Robert, unable to bear the thought of losing his family, had taken matters into his own hands, eliminating the threat he perceived in the only way he knew how. Others believed that the family had simply run away, seeking a fresh start far from their troubled patriarch. But the truth, as Emily would soon discover, was far more sinister and far more tragic than anyone could have imagined. Have you ever had that feeling? That feeling of being watched, of eyes boring into your back even when you're alone? That unsettling prickle on the back of your neck that sends shivers down your spine? This is the story of Sarah, a young woman who experienced that feeling, and for good reason. It started subtly, a fleeting glimpse of a rusty, nondescript van in her rearview mirror, always a block or two behind. At first, Sarah dismissed it as a coincidence, her mind playing tricks on her. But as the days turned into weeks, the van remained a constant presence, a shadow lurking in the periphery of her life. The unease gnawed at Sarah's insides. Every time she glanced in her mirror, the van was there, maintaining a steady, unwavering distance. It felt like a predator stalking its prey, patiently waiting for the opportune moment to strike. The fear, once a flicker, began to consume her, casting a long, dark shadow over her once ordinary life. Sarah found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, her heart pounding in her chest like a drumbeat of dread. Sleep offered no escape, haunted by nightmares of the van, its rusty exterior glinting menacingly under the pale moonlight. One evening, as Sarah drove home from work, the feeling of dread intensified. The traffic was light, the streets eerily quiet, and then she saw it, the van. It had turned onto the same street, its headlights cutting through the gathering gloom like the malevolent eyes of a predator. Panic surged through Sarah's veins, a cold fist clenching around her heart. This was no longer a coincidence. She was being followed. Desperate to escape the suffocating terror, Sarah pressed down on the gas pedal, her car lurching forward. Her heart pounded against her ribs, each beat echoing the growing terror that threatened to overwhelm her. But the van kept pace, its presence as relentless as ever. It was a terrifying game of cat and mouse played out on the desolate streets. The van, a menacing shadow, mirrored her every turn, every desperate attempt to shake off the chilling pursuit. Thinking fast, Sarah veered off her usual route, her mind racing, searching for a way out of this nightmare. She swerved onto a side street, hoping to lose the van in the labyrinth of narrow lanes. But her pursuer was relentless, its presence growing ever more menacing. Each turn, each desperate maneuver, only seemed to fuel the terrifying chase. Just when the terror threatened to consume her completely, Sarah spotted a glimmer of hope. A police station, its neon sign a beacon in the encroaching darkness. With a surge of adrenaline, she swung the car towards it, her tires screeching in protest. The van, momentarily caught off guard, hesitated for a moment, that crucial second that made all the difference. Sarah pulled into the brightly lit parking lot of the police station, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The van, its headlights flashing briefly in the distance, sped past, disappearing into the night. Moving to a new city can be a lonely experience, especially when you're starting fresh. That's exactly how Emily felt when she relocated to Chicago for a promising job opportunity. Eager to settle in and make new connections, she decided to find a roommate to share an apartment with. After weeks of searching, she stumbled upon the perfect listing. A spacious, sunlit apartment with a seemingly friendly woman named Anna. From the very first meeting, Anna exuded an air of quiet charm. Her demeanor was pleasant, her smile disarming. She spoke little about her past, attributing it to a desire for a fresh start, a sentiment Emily could relate to. Relieved to have found a seemingly compatible roommate, Emily brushed aside the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. She convinced herself it was just the stress of the move, the unfamiliarity of her new surroundings playing tricks on her mind. As the weeks passed, Emily couldn't shake off the growing sense of unease that had settled over her. Anna, despite her initial friendly facade, was proving to be an enigma. Her behavior was erratic, her mood shifting like quicksand. She would spend hours on end locked in her room, emerging with a distant, almost vacant look in her eyes. It was as if a switch had been flipped, transforming the once charming woman into a stranger. Emily tried to rationalize Anna's behavior, attributing it to stress or perhaps a difficult past. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been sown, and it was beginning to take root. One evening, while Anna was out, Emily stumbled upon a box tucked away in the back of their shared closet. Curiosity got the better of her, and she cautiously lifted the lid. Inside, she found a collection of disturbing items, newspaper clippings detailing unsolved murders, strange talismans, and handwritten notes filled with cryptic symbols. A chill ran down Emily's spine as she realized the gravity of her discovery. These were not the belongings of a harmless eccentric, they were the tools of someone far more sinister. Fear coiled in the pit of Emily's stomach, a cold dread seeping into her bones. She had to get out, to escape the suffocating confines of the apartment before it was too late. As she frantically stuffed her belongings into a bag, she heard the unmistakable click of the front door opening. Anna was back. Emily froze, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. Slowly she turned to face the door, her breath catching in her throat. Standing in the doorway was Anna, her eyes cold and calculating, a cruel smile playing on her lips. In her hand she held a gleaming silver knife, its blade reflecting the dim light from the hallway. "Going somewhere, Emily?" Anna asked, her voice a chilling whisper that sent shivers down Emily's spine. "We haven't finished our little game yet." 2 stories, 2 encounters with the unknown, 2 lives forever changed. Both Sarah and Emily survived their ordeals, but the scars of that night remain etched deep within their memories. These chilling encounters serve as a stark reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places, hiding beneath a veneer of normalcy. But here's a question that chills me to the bone. Were these isolated incidents? Or could there be a connection, a sinister thread linking these terrifying events? Some might dismiss it as mere coincidence, but I believe the truth is far more unsettling. The answers, my friends, lie hidden in the shadows, waiting to be revealed. If you dare to venture further into the darkness, I invite you to join me next time as we delve deeper into the chilling world of true crime and uncover the terrifying truth behind these encounters. But be warned, once you step into the shadows, there's no turning back. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chilling chapter of our journey into the heart of darkness. Until next time, stay safe and keep the lights on. Have you ever felt a shiver crawl up your spine when you step into a dark room? Or perhaps a sense of unease when the lights flicker, even for a brief moment? These sensations are not mere coincidences. They are whispers from the unknown, nudges from something lurking just beyond our perception. Tonight we journey into the shadows, into places most would dare not tread. We explore the hidden corners of our world where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, and where fear takes on a life of its own. From haunted basements to forgotten attics, these are the spaces where nightmares are born and where the line between reality and the supernatural blurs. As we unravel these tales, remember to keep your lights dimmed and your doors locked. For in the darkness, we are never truly alone. Whatever you do, stay until the end, as the chilling truth behind these stories is something you won't want to miss. Prepare yourself for an unsettling journey into the heart of darkness. Our first story takes us to a basement where a group of friends discovered that some games should never be played. One night, a group of friends decided to play with a Ouija board in the basement, hoping to contact the spirits. As they began, the planchette moved on its own, spelling out chilling messages. The air grew cold, and an oppressive presence filled the room. Terrified, the friends huddled together, realizing they had awakened something malevolent. They fled the basement, slamming the door shut behind them, but the presence they had summoned was not so easily banished. Strange occurrences plagued them from that day forward, lights flickering, objects moving on their own, and whispers in the night. Unable to endure the terror any longer, the friends left the house, vowing never to return. The house now stands abandoned, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded within its walls. But the basement remains, waiting for its next unsuspecting victim. Be warned, once you've peered into the abyss also peers into you. Stay until the end if you dare, to uncover the chilling truth behind the next story. Our next story takes us to a different basement where a young couple discovered that some secrets are better left buried. Sarah and Mark had just moved into their first home together. While exploring the basement, they found a hidden door that led to a dark passage. Curiosity got the better of them and they ventured inside, discovering an old, dusty room with strange symbols on the walls. As they examined the symbols, they felt an overwhelming sense of dread. They were not alone. Panicked, they fled the basement, slamming the door shut behind them, but the presence they had awakened was not so easily contained. Pause 0.5s. That night, as they tried to sleep, they heard faint whispers echoing through the house. Initially, they dismissed it as the wind or creaking pipes, but the whispers grew louder and more distinct, forming words they couldn't quite understand. Objects began to move on their own, lights flickered, and an oppressive atmosphere settled over the house. Sarah and Mark were gripped by a growing sense of unease and fear. Desperate for answers, they sought help from a local historian who specialized in the occult. The historian revealed that their home was built on land that had once been the site of dark rituals. The symbols in the hidden room were part of an ancient summoning ritual meant to call forth a malevolent entity. Realizing the danger they were in, Sarah and Mark tried to cleanse the house, but their efforts seemed to anger the entity further. The disturbances escalated, shadows moved on their own, and the whispers became more insistent, almost as if the entity was trying to communicate with them. The couple could no longer ignore the signs. They had awakened something dark and powerful, and it was not going to let them go easily. In a final desperate attempt to escape, Sarah and Mark packed their belongings and fled the house, vowing never to return. The house now stands abandoned, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded within its walls. Our final story takes us to a basement where a group of friends discovered that some games should never be played. One night, a group of friends decided to play with a Ouija board in the basement, hoping to contact the spirits. As they began, the planchette moved on its own, spelling out chilling messages. The air grew cold, and an oppressive presence filled the room. Terrified, the friends huddled together, realizing they had awakened something malevolent. They fled the basement, slamming the door shut behind them, but the presence they had summoned was not so easily banished. Strange occurrences plagued them from that day forward, lights flickering, objects moving on their own, and whispers in the night. Unable to endure the terror any longer, the friends left the house, vowing never to return. So turn down the lights, lock your doors, and brace yourselves as we embark on a journey into the heart of darkness. Stay until the end if you dare to uncover the chilling truth behind these stories. But our story doesn't end there. There's one more chapter that unravels the dark secrets of basements. This time, we delve into the chilling tale of a family who uncovered a sinister secret buried deep below their home. In the small town of Millfield, the Thompsons had just moved into an old Victorian house, excited to start their new life. Little did they know, the house held a dark history. While cleaning out the basement, they stumbled upon an old, locked chest. Curiosity piqued, they forced it open, revealing a collection of old photographs and diaries, each page more disturbing than the last. The diaries belonged to the house's original owner, a man named Samuel Blackwood, who had been rumored to dabble in the occult. The entries described dark rituals and sacrifices made to appease an ancient malevolent entity. As the Thompsons read further, they realized that the entity had been bound to the basement by these rituals. That night the house came alive with eerie sounds. The basement door creaked open on its own, shadows danced on the walls, and the air grew thick with a chilling presence. The Thompsons tried to seal the basement, but it was too late. They had unwittingly released the entity. Strange occurrences plagued them, whispers in the dark, objects moving on their own, and an oppressive feeling of dread that never left. Desperate, they sought help from a paranormal investigator who confirmed their worst fears. The entity was growing stronger, feeding off their fear. In a final desperate attempt to rid themselves of the entity, the Thompsons performed a cleansing ritual. But the entity fought back, manifesting in terrifying ways. The walls shook, lights flickered, and a shadowy figure loomed in the darkness. Unable to endure the terror any longer, the Thompsons fled the house, leaving everything behind. The house now stands abandoned, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded within its walls. The city had always held a certain allure for me, its bustling streets and towering buildings a stark contrast to the quiet rural life I had left behind. But beneath the veneer of modernity, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. My new apartment, a cozy one-bedroom in a pre-war building, seemed to hum with an unseen energy. It wasn't malevolent, not exactly, but it was unsettling nonetheless. Like an echo of something forgotten, a whisper of a presence just beyond my perception. The basement, the building superintendent had informed me with a knowing smirk, was off-limits. Old pipes, he'd said, liable to burst if you so much as look at them funny. But I saw the glint in his eye, the unspoken warning lurking beneath his casual demeanor. It was the same feeling I had gotten in that old Victorian house, the same prickling sensation that told me something was hidden down there, something that wanted to stay hidden. Years ago, I had explored an abandoned house deep in the woods. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the floorboards creaked underfoot. The attic was filled with old, dusty furniture and broken windows that let in slivers of moonlight. I had felt a presence there too, a shadowy figure lurking just out of sight, watching me. In the attic, I found an old journal filled with cryptic writing, as if someone had tried to document the horrors they had witnessed. Now, in my new apartment, the basement called to me with the same eerie allure. I knew I had to find out what was hidden down there, even if it meant facing the unknown once again. As the family continued to live in their new home, the whispers became a constant presence, gnawing at their peace of mind. But it wasn't until one fateful evening that they discovered the true source of their torment. The 5-year-old daughter, who had always been an adventurous spirit, found herself drawn to the old wooden door at the far end of the basement. It was a door they had never opened, assuming it led to a storage room filled with forgotten relics of the past. One night, curiosity got the better of her. She tiptoed down the creaky basement stairs, the dim light of her flashlight casting eerie shadows on the walls. As she approached the door, her small hand reached out, trembling slightly, and turned the rusty knob. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. She hesitated, a chill running down her spine, but the whispers, now clearer and more urgent, seemed to beckon her forward. The parents, realizing their daughter was missing, frantically searched the house, their hearts pounding with fear. They heard her faint voice calling from the basement, and they rushed down, only to find the open door and the dark staircase beyond. With a mixture of dread and determination, they descended the stairs, their flashlights flickering as if the very air around them resisted their presence. What they found at the bottom of the stairs was a room that defied explanation. The walls were lined with old, yellowed photographs of previous occupants, each one marked with dates and cryptic symbols. In the center of the room stood a large, ancient chest, bound with heavy chains and covered in strange, indecipherable markings. The whispers grew louder, more frenzied, as if urging them to open the chest. With trembling hands, the father began to unfasten the chains, each clink echoing ominously in the confined space. As the final chain fell away, the chest lid creaked open, revealing a collection of old, dusty journals. The mother picked one up, her hands shaking as she flipped through the pages. The journals detailed the horrifying history of the house, recounting tales of rituals, sacrifices, and a malevolent entity that had been bound within the very foundations of the home. Realization dawned on them with chilling clarity. The house itself was a prison for something ancient and evil, and their presence had begun to awaken it. They grabbed their daughter and fled the basement, their hearts pounding with terror. But as they reached the top of the stairs, the whispers followed them, a constant reminder that the darkness they had uncovered would never truly let them go. Just when the family thought they had escaped the terror of the mirror, another ominous discovery awaited them. The next morning, they noticed a set of dusty old keys lying on the kitchen counter, keys they had never seen before. Curiosity mixed with dread as they realized these keys might unlock another hidden part of the basement. Despite their fear, the urge to uncover the full truth drove them back down the creaky stairs. As they reached the basement, the air felt thick, almost suffocating. They approached a rusted, old door they had previously assumed was sealed shut. The keys fit perfectly, and with a reluctant twist, the door creaked open, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, the light from their flashlight revealed something even more disturbing: ancient, worn furniture, as if the room had been a secret living space. But it was the walls that truly horrified them. They were covered in cryptic symbols and unsettling drawings, depicting shadowy figures and scenes of torment. Suddenly the temperature dropped dramatically, their breath visible in the frigid air. A sense of dread washed over them as they felt an unseen presence. The daughter, holding tightly to her mother's hand, pointed to a corner where a faint, ghostly figure began to materialize. It was a woman, her face contorted in sorrow, her eyes hollow and vacant. She seemed to be reaching out, her mouth moving as if whispering, though no sound escaped her lips. The father stepped forward, trying to communicate, but the figure's expression turned from sorrow to rage. The room vibrated with a low, guttural growl, and the walls began to bleed a dark, viscous liquid. The family backed away, but the door they had entered through slammed shut with a deafening bang. The ghostly woman advanced, her form flickering between visibility and shadow. In a desperate attempt to protect his family, the father grabbed a piece of broken furniture and swung it at the apparition. To their astonishment, it passed through her, hitting the wall instead. The woman let out a blood-curdling scream, and the room's energy intensified, the symbols on the walls glowing with an eerie light. The mother, thinking quickly, pulled out a small silver locket she had found among the dusty journals. She held it up, and the ghostly figure paused, her expression softening. The locket began to glow, and the woman reached out, touching it gently. In that moment, the oppressive atmosphere lifted slightly, and the woman began to fade, her form dissolving into a mist that was absorbed by the locket. The door behind them creaked open, and the family fled the basement, clutching the locket tightly. As they reached the safety of the upstairs, they could still feel the cold, lingering touch of the phantom's grasp. They knew that while they had banished one spirit, the house held many more secrets, each more terrifying than the last. The phantom's grasp had shown them that the past never truly stays buried, and some spirits remain tethered to the darkness, waiting for the chance to reach out once more. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest horror tales.
Welcome to 3 true disturbing high school horror stories. In this video we will explore 3 spine-chilling tales that will make you think twice about your high school memories. Stay tuned till the end for a thrilling conclusion. High school is often remembered as a place of learning, friendships, and unforgettable experiences, but lurking beneath the surface of these seemingly ordinary memories are stories that defy explanation. Stories that will send shivers down your spine and make you question the reality of the world around you. As we navigate through these eerie encounters, remember, some stories are more than just tales, they are warnings. So sit back, turn off the lights, and prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown. Our first chapter begins with a classroom that holds a dark secret. A secret that has left students and teachers alike questioning their sanity. Now let's step into the first chapter of our unsettling journey. Our first story, The Forgotten Hallway. It was a dark and stormy night when a group of students decided to explore the abandoned hallway of their high school. Little did they know they were not alone. Imagine an old forgotten part of the school, a hallway that has been sealed off for years. The doors creak with age and the walls are covered with layers of dust and cobwebs. This is where our story unfolds. A group of curious students, driven by tales of ghostly encounters, decided to venture into this forsaken corridor. Armed with nothing but their courage and a single flashlight, they pushed open the heavy doors and stepped into the unknown. As they walked down the hallway, the air grew colder and an eerie silence enveloped them. The sound of their footsteps echoed ominously, amplifying their fear. They noticed strange markings on the walls, symbols and scribbles that seemed to tell a story of their own. The further they went, the more they felt an unshakable sense of dread, as if they were being watched. Suddenly the flashlight flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Panic set in, but they managed to calm themselves enough to continue. They fumbled for their phones, using the dim light to guide them. That's when they heard it. A soft, almost imperceptible whisper, calling their names. The voice seemed to come from all directions, growing louder and more insistent with each passing second. One of the students, braver than the rest, decided to move forward, determined to uncover the source of the whispers. As he reached the end of the hallway, he saw it, a shadowy figure standing in the corner, barely visible in the faint light. The figure seemed to be watching them, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The student froze, unable to move as the figure began to approach. The rest of the group, realizing the danger, grabbed their friend and ran back the way they came. They burst through the doors, gasping for breath, their hearts pounding with fear. They never spoke of that night again, but the memory haunted them, a constant reminder of the terror they had faced. The abandoned hallway was sealed off once more, but the stories continued to spread. Some say the shadowy figure still roams the corridor, waiting for the next group of curious students to venture into its domain. So if you ever find yourself near an old, forgotten part of your school, remember this story. Some places are better left undisturbed, for the secrets they hold are far too dangerous to uncover. Now, let's move on to our next chilling tale. But before we do, let me tell you about another eerie incident that happened in the same school. It was during a late-night study session. When the clock struck midnight, the lights began to flicker and the students felt a sudden chill. A ghostly figure appeared at the back of the classroom, causing the students to scream in terror. The figure vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the students to wonder if they'd imagined it all. The classroom was empty the next day, but whispers of the ghostly encounter spread like wildfire. The school was never the same again, with students avoiding the classroom where the incident occurred. The school at night became a place of fear, with sightings of the ghostly figure becoming more frequent. Students began to share their own ghost stories, and the legend of the haunted school grew. So remember, some places are better left undisturbed, for the secrets they hold are far too dangerous to uncover. Now let's move on to our next chilling tale. Story 2. The Haunted Classroom. During a late-night study session, a student encounters a ghostly figure in the classroom. As the night progresses, the haunting becomes more intense. Imagine walking into a classroom. The same classroom you've been sitting in for years, but today something feels different. The air is thick with an unexplainable tension, and a cold shiver runs down your spine as you take your seat. This is where our story begins. A tale of a haunted classroom that has left students and teachers alike questioning their sanity. It all started with small things. A flickering light, a misplaced book, whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. But soon, the occurrences became more sinister.